Coming up on Newswatch in Focus, despite a little bit of rain in the area last night, the drought goes on. We'll get the latest from Cameron Craig and Chris Laingen from Eastern Illinois University's Geology Geography Department and find out what it would take to get us back on track and if that's even a possibility. And we'll take a look at what made local headlines this week on WEIU Newswatch. Stay tuned, Newswatch in Focus starts now. Welcome and thanks for joining us for Newswatch in Focus. I'm your host, Kate Pleasant. Newswatch in Focus takes an in-depth look at the latest news stories from the greater Mattoon and Charleston area, as well as those surrounding it each week. This week, we'll get an update on the drought from our in-studio guests. We'll talk to Cameron Craig and Chris Laingen in a little bit, but first, let's take a look at what made headlines on WEIU Newswatch this week. Authorities are looking into a possible robbery in Mattoon. 44-year-old Misty Thomas of Effingham told police she had pulled up to the Circle K gas station on DeWitt Avenue and was approached by a female holding an infant child asking for money. While she was speaking to the female, police say a man came up to her side door and took her wallet from inside the car. Thomas says the suspects immediately fled the scene, and authorities are asking anyone with information to contact the Coles County Crime Stoppers or Mattoon Police. And a 12-year-old Mattoon boy has been charged with starting a fire at Hawthorne Middle School on Champaign Avenue. The Mattoon Fire Department responded to a call last Sunday in regards to a large amount of burning playground equipment. A joint investigation by the Mattoon Police Department and fire personnel reveals that the 12-year-old started the fire under playground equipment and it quickly spread to the surrounding area. The juvenile suspect has been arrested in the past for starting fires and has currently been released to his parents. And demolition of Lovington High School got underway this week. The demolition is bringing mixed emotions for residents and school officials in the town. School officials say both Lovington High School and Arthur High School administrative teams are currently preparing to transfer students from Lovington to Arthur before the start of the school year. Currently, school officials don't know what will happen to the property once the school is demolished. In sports this week, we're just under 1 month away from the season home opener for the Eastern Illinois University football team. The squad will welcome Southern Illinois Carbondale to the newly revamped O'Brien Field on August 30th. And according to players, that day can't come quick enough after the Salukis ended the Panthers' 2011 season with a 45-28 loss.
We've been waiting for this since last season ended. You know, we still got a bitter taste in our mouth. So 31 days, it gets the jitters going. But, you know, leaving SIU the way we did and having them come to our place now on our new field, we feel like it's going to be an exciting game.
The team also started their training camp practices this week in preparation for the SIU matchup. And players in Mattoon's Cal Ripken League did something few expected this week. Newswatch's Andrew Benson has more.
We got to play hard and no errors, and we got to hit the ball. We strike out, we'll lose, and if we don't field the ball, we'll lose. If we field the ball, we win. If we hit the ball, we win.
Sounds like a simple recipe.
It's a very determined, hard-working group of boys.
It's one of the biggest tournaments that a Carpin player can get to. I mean, I'm psyched about it.
It's the biggest stage for these players. The Mattoon All-Stars will play in the Cal Ripken World Series in Aberdeen, Maryland next weekend. To get to this point, the boys won the Ohio Valley Region Championship, a tournament nobody expected them to win.
We were the 5th seed, and we beat the 4th seed in the quarterfinals, the 1st seed in the semifinals, and the 2nd seed in the championship. So I do believe that we had a little bit of underdog status, but our kids played very solid in those 3 games, and I think we made believers of everybody down there.
Mattoon hosted the World Series in 1999, 2000, and 2002, so they received an automatic bid into the tournament. This year, the All-Stars qualified for the games for the first time. And managers say actually earning their spot helps give their team some motivation.
I need your focus. We use that as a rally cry. We wanted to be the first team to qualify for the World Series. And we knew it was going to be hard because it's always hard to do something the first time.
Feels great. Just know that we're only team from Mattoon at our age to make it there.
After making history and surpassing expectations, these Mattoon boys say they've learned a lesson to take with them the rest of their careers.
Never give up. I mean, you could be down 10-0. You can score like six runs in the third inning and then score 5 more runs in the bottom of the sixth to go and win it.
The Mattoon All-Stars will start their World Series run Saturday, August 11th versus Lamar, Colorado. The U.S. and international champions will play Saturday, August 18th. The world champions will be crowned on Sunday, August 19th.
And of course, the topic of choice this week is the drought, and it's still continuing to affect area people and businesses in a variety of ways. You might have noticed that despite the drought, some things are still growing, mainly weeds. Newswatch's Amanda Richardson has more on why weeds are winning.
It needs very little water, and while everything else is dying, it's thriving. It's the common weed, and it's creating a nuisance for homeowners and farmers.
In a normal crop situation or a grass lawn situation, if the grass is healthy or the crop is healthy, it'll really shade and suppress some of the weeds from coming up, or it'll compete against them and they won't be as obvious. But there is no competition in the lawn this year.
And it all goes back to the lack of rain this summer.
If you're a farmer, we've got sparse moisture because of the drought, so that just takes that much more moisture away from the crop if you've got a lot of weeds.
But the big question is, what can we do to get rid of these unwelcome weeds?
As a homeowner, if you want to get out there and mechanically take them out, there's tools that'll do that. Spot treat with the chemicals, and then this fall, if we get a little bit of moisture, it might be good to fertilize your lawn this fall.
And it said the best thing to do is identify what you have and then come in and then we can kind of look, through. There's a lot of different products and stuff that we have that's available that, we can kind of help you out and identify what you have.
But no matter what, be prepared to keep working against the weeds.
When we have pop-up showers, the weeds will start to come back, where it takes the grass a little bit longer, but, not really a whole lot of here as of late.
They're here to stay. We'll never get rid of all of them, so don't get too worked up about it.
In Charleston, I'm Amanda Richardson for WEIU Newswatch.
Amanda Richardson also found out this week that campers at Lake Shelbyville are having to change their plans to stay ahead of the weather. Here's that story.
Loading up the family camper and heading to the lake is a big part of summer for many people. But with conditions like this, many are just staying home.
Our tourism has gone down, I feel like anyway, for being here for a couple years, and this is my hometown, so I haven't seen as much tourism going on.
And many campers say 100-degree temperatures make a relaxing trip to the woods not so relaxing.
It's like a sauna in the tents when you wake up. You wake up and it's already 80, 90 degrees in your tent.
But it's not just the heat dampening plans, it's local burn bans as well.
There is one in Lone Point Campground, and there is also one in the Eagle Creek Campground. They cannot start an open fire or have a fire in general.
Although not all campgrounds have official bans, campers are still being cautious.
Being a lot more careful as far as, when we're leaving the site, making sure that they're completely out, dousing them with water, stirring them, and then redousing them with water again to make sure that there's no, reignitions from the coals.
In Shelbyville, I'm Amanda Richardson for WEIU Newswatch.
Moving from the lake to Cobble Lane in Charleston, exceptionally dry conditions and a tossed cigarette appear to be the cause of a large fire in Coles County. This was a scene earlier this week on Cobble Lane near Cobble's Welding, Sales, and Service in Charleston. The Newswatch team on scene says the fire was large. Lincoln Fire Protection District were the first called to the scene, and Charleston Fire Department was called to assist. Newswatch spoke with a Cobble's Welding employee who says his tossed cigarette caused the fire and destroyed logs belonging to Advantage Tree Service. And drought conditions have continued throughout the summer. We talked to Cameron Craig from EIU's Geology Geography Department about a month ago, but since then, conditions have changed and become more severe. We'll be back in just a minute with an updated look at the drought from Cameron Craig and Chris Laingen, who are here in our studio, so stay tuned. Wonder where we get our story inspirations from? Make sure to tune in to Newswatch every weeknight at 5:30 right here on WEIU to find out. Newswatch in Focus takes a local story from the week that was featured on Newswatch and goes more in depth. For more local news, weather, and sports, tune in to Newswatch every weeknight at 5:30. Welcome back. I'm joined now by Cameron Craig and Chris Laingen from EIU's Geology Geography Department, and they are our drought specialists today. So can you tell me, from each of your perspectives, what your expertise is when it comes to talking about the drought?
I focus on climatology. I teach the broadcast meteorology students here at the university.
Okay.
So I'm a geographer as well. So that's my specialty.
Okay. And what about you, Chris?
I'm also trained as a geographer. I focus on agricultural land use and land use changes broadly. So my main focus of research lately has been the expansion of the Corn Belt throughout the last half century or so.
Okay. All right. So that's where we're at with that. And so we'll jump right into the drought. Can you kind of paint a picture for me of what this is looking like right now? It can't be good.
It's not good. It's grim. It's not a pretty picture.
Right.
And, walk across campus, people give me these weird looks. But
don't shoot the weatherman, right?
Right. Don't shoot the weatherman. But it's a positive feedback cycle where you have dry soil, and then you have you try to get rain, but it evaporates before it hits the ground, and then the temperature rises, which increases the evaporation rate, and then the plants, the crops, through transpiration, they further dry out the soil. So when we do get a chance of rain, it just fizzles out before it gets here. So it's not, in the grass, I mean, everybody sees it when they're walking around outside. The grass is,
yeah, it's
crinkly.
crunchy.
And water restrictions, nobody likes that. And so it's just a very bad picture this summer.
Okay, and Chris, from your perspective, kind of what is that picture looking like as well?
Well, for the case of the farmers, just very, very low yields this year. In some cases, I've heard of farmers just mowing down what crops they've already would have harvested, which basically means they had no need to even try to harvest them. So anywhere around here, I've seen reports. What should be 200 bushel plus corn is down right around, I know Douglas County is right around 100 acres, bushels per acre average. So, and that's hit and miss. Some fields are going to be in the high 100s. Some fields are going to be 30 to 35, 40 bushels an acre. So
that's not good.
Not good, no.
Okay, so what about rain? Because it rained this week. Not much.
It rained. It rained last night, and so it was 0.22 inches. Okay, so just to put this in perspective, this will not reverse our drought situation.
Right, it'd take a lot to reverse it.
Yeah, we need more than 11 inches of rain in a very long period of time.
I was going to say, because doing it all in one night wouldn't get it done.
No, but it did help. The rain that we did get last night, it didn't evaporate very quickly because the sun wasn't out.
Right.
And so it allowed the grass to kind of soak that up a little bit if it's still around, and the weeds definitely soaked it up.
Always.
But if you have bushes, broadleaf bushes, you would definitely see the impact. The leaves would not look so wilty.
Yeah, I noticed that this morning when I came out. There was water standing on some of my plants, and they actually looked a little less unhappy.
Death.
Yeah, death. That's a good word for it. They looked a little less death. So what does it mean? I mean, you said 11 inches is what it would take to get us back, and we're not going to get that. But everybody asks me this question: when will it happen? When do we get all this rain? Well, when do we reverse the situation? Well, like I tell my students, when we start heading into winter and we tilt away from the sun, usually the jet streams will migrate with it and will move back to the south. Well, and I got to thinking about that earlier this week, but we didn't have the jet streams migrate south last winter. They stayed up north. Okay.
And so I think that we're going to see this situation. We're going to be in this ridge for a very long time. Maybe one or two times hit miss, we get a trough in the area, which brings us the precipitation. But I think we're going to see this for a very long time. The outlook right now is extremely dry for the month of August.
Okay, and that's going to affect the fall and the spring come next year as well, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say that the snowfall we didn't get this winter, with those jet streams being further north, kind of jump-started the drought.
That's right, yeah. The warm temperatures kind of put us in that category long-term.
Right. Okay. And so, when a situation like this happens, because this has happened before, this isn't, the most unusual drought ever, according to what I'm hearing. It's maybe not the worst yet. I don't know where it'll go from here, but what does that mean? I mean, where do we when does it, you know, you said people always ask you when does it get back, but I mean, is this like something that's going to go on for years with the jet stream thing, or is it maybe just months, or is it hard to tell?
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. I mean, it was difficult for us last October to, I mean, we were saying that we were going to have cold, snowy winter.
Right.
And then 3 months later, it never occurred. And Bob Catania, another colleague of mine, you know, we cannot forecast to I mean, we can do it accurately, but it's a hit or miss.
Right.
You know, so it's difficult to say and forecast what will happen, you know, during winter. It could be 20 inches of snow for the entire season, which would put us near average. But to say that right now
isn't really.
What does it mean?
Right. Well, and it's also, isn't it true that the further out, the less accurate, you know, the further out you're looking, the less accurate. I mean, even you've said it before with the 10-day forecast, that's even, the further out you go in that, the less accurate it gets. So.
I always tell my students in my weather class, it's just like, you know, think of your life. Do you know what you're going to be doing tomorrow? Probably. Do you know what you're going to be doing next week?
Maybe.
Probably. Next year? Who knows?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Too much can change between now and then, so that's a good analogy. So, well, Chris, can you talk about what's going on for farmers right now?
Right now, they're just kind of wondering, you know, are we going to get a little bit of rain that might help with some of the soybeans a little bit? I think any rain that we would get now, as far as helping corn, is pretty much a done deal. So
okay, so that's over.
Yeah, that's pretty much over with. And a lot of them now are just sort of figuring out how they're going to deal with these very decreased yields.
Okay.
Some farmers still may have some corn that they haven't sold yet from last year's harvest, which they could maybe play around with a little bit, try to get some better prices by selling it now or into the future, into the next few months, which could help a little bit. But you know, like we've discussed before, I think, you know, farming is the business, just like any other business. You're going to have up and down years. So I think while some farmers will take a hit this year, they're going to rebound next year if conditions improve, and you know, things will go on.
So this is not the end all.
This is not the end all be all. For those who have done what they need to do, have their finances in order, and are smart about what they do, they'll take a hit this year, but they'll be fine. For those maybe who haven't, or maybe those in the area, not necessarily here in and around Illinois, but maybe further south, where you're getting into more strictly cattle farmers who have been in drought conditions for the last couple of years.
Right.
Some of them may be getting to the tipping point where there's just literally nothing they can do anymore, and might have to sell off their herds.
And that's kind of where I was going to go next, you know, is livestock taking a hit?
Yes, yes. Just yesterday, the House passed a $383 million emergency drought package to help some sheep and cattle farmers, which we don't have a lot of anymore here in Illinois, but down in the southern part of the state, a few. As far as corn and soybean farmers go, their crop insurance is still being handled under the previous farm bill.
Okay. So, but you said that's kind of been a downward trend anyway with the livestock farming. That's kind of been something that's been decreasing over the years.
Yeah, just like any other business, we're becoming more specialized. Farmers are becoming more specialized. So where 50 years ago every farmer had some cows, some pigs, grew corn, grew wheat, grew a whole bunch of different types of things. Today, we're very much in a specialized type of industry where in and around Coles County here, we're looking at mainly corn and soybean farmers. A little bit of wheat, a few cattle, but for the most part, beef cattle farming has been relegated to the plains region of the United States. So.
Okay. And I've heard this drought compared a lot to the drought of '88. I hear about '88 a lot. Historically, would you say it's similar?
Similar, and we'll see when it's all done.
Right.
Yes, we'll be able to compare it. But last month, we for Charleston we broke the driest July. The driest July on record was 1947 with 0.29 inches of rain. We broke that big time with 0.08
that's terrible.
inches of rain.
Wow. So we not just surpassed it, we crushed it.
That's right, we crushed
in a bad way.
And it will be difficult. Someday it may be difficult to break the 800s.
I would think so. I mean, and summer-wide, you know, historically, we've broken quite a few records this year, have we not?
Yes. In March, we broke the maximum temperatures in 6 or 7 days in a row, but precipitation-wise, we definitely hit the record books this time.
In a bad way, of course. Yeah, so there was also a lot of 100-plus days, is that correct? The temperature-wise?
Yes, we had 39 days that the temperature was plus 90.
Wow.
Okay, and then we had...
In a row, or is that just
That
total?
is, well, for the month of July alone, we only had one day that was 1 degree below 90. So...
Wow.
Yeah, and then we had 14 days where the temperatures were plus 100.
And when temperatures are hot like that, what does that mean weather-wise?
Weather-wise, it's just hot and awful. And we're in a position where we're in the heart of the ridge of the jet stream, and it's just miserable. And the other thing is that it increases evaporation rates too, which further bakes the soil.
Just complicates the problem more.
Right.
And I was going to say for on the ag side, for crops like corn, you know, we started having those very warm temperatures early on in the summertime when corn is basically just worried about getting bigger, closing its canopy over the rows on either side of it, which then takes the weeds out of the picture, helps to save some of that moisture evaporating off of the soil. But plants are living beings. They're going to do whatever it takes to keep their species moving along year to year. So when they see drought, they see stress, they start saying, hey, what do I have to do to survive? Well, I put my tassel up, I start to, you know, create those cobs of corn. That happened way too early this year. You know, all that energy that corn usually uses to grow taller, to grow, you know, to have higher yields come fall, happened way too early. The heat continued stressing the plants, and basically that's kind of how we've gotten to where we're at today.
So, I mean, it kind of jump-started the farmers at the beginning, because they're all excited. It's warm, I'm ready to plant, I'm going to plant. This could be a really good year. And then bang.
And acres-wise, it is a record year of corn acres planted in the United States. So where we'll lose off a little bit on yield, we'll maybe make up for it a little bit with just how many acres we had planted.
Okay. Well, and I assume plants, other than crops, are doing this too. I noticed, you know, trees and things, they don't expend any more energy than they have to right now because they're just trying to keep their leaves. I assume that's, you know, plant kingdom wide right now.
Exactly. Yep. They'll do what they have to do to survive to the next year.
Yeah, you start seeing them do less things because they can't expend that energy right now.
Right, and I've done dendrochronology studies, dendroclimatology studies, where taking tree rings and measuring the ring width. Well, we take a tree that's plus 100 years old.
Right.
You can definitely tell the 1930s because all of the rings are very close in together. So and those rings indicate what the tree is actually doing.
Right.
It's shutting down. When it's limited by moisture or temperature or whatever, it will shut down. So in those rings this year, the rings will be very
close
tight
together. So we'll be able to tell that in the future as well, what's going on there. So what's next for people dealing with the drought? I mean, I know people are watering their lawns, just trying to keep their grass from dying because it's dormant, it's not dead. You know, we talked about that on this show before too, but what's next?
People should really practice water restriction on their own, because the last thing we need is, you know, nothing to drink, and nothing to, you know, bathe and whatever. We should let the grass just dry, just let it go
just
dormant.
Grass,
right. And you know, we don't need all these better homes and gardens in this situation. We need
I don't think you'll
to
see
practice
that in a drought anyway.
Right. And so we need to practice water restrictions on an individual basis.
Okay. And do you have anything to add there?
I mean, with respect to agriculture, I really don't think it's going to change a whole lot of what's happening in the future. We're a corn and soybean region. We're going to continue to be one. A lot of money and investment has been put in to create the agricultural landscapes that we see today. Year after year, seed companies are coming up with more and more drought-tolerant varieties of crops, so I think we'll see those continue to help in years like this increase yields a little bit. But you know, it'll be a little bit of a hit this year for some farmers, but I think, you know, we'll continue on, and the vast majority of them will survive.
So it could be all different next year. You know, as far as this doesn't necessarily
and that's
affect
the thing.
crops.
This is not going to be the end all. You know, it will improve.
Right, because I think, you know, a lot of people think, well, if it's this bad, it's going to be this bad forever. You know, I mean, but it's good to hear right here that it's not the case. So, and I imagine that, you know, different water supplies. There's some places that work off aquifers, some places that work off wells. I assume the people with wells, obviously, they're probably not having much luck, but
it depends on how deep they. When I was growing up, our well in Noblesville, north of Indianapolis, was about 150 feet, and then after 10 years, we had to go deeper.
Further.
Now, my hometown reservoir, Morris Reservoir, has been talked about in the national news, and they are the main supplier of water for Indianapolis.
Right.
Well, in mid-June, Indianapolis Water said, you got to drain it so we can have some water. Well, I drove around that lake. There are boats that are marooned across the lake, and the beach was closed because there is no beach. There's just no water there. So, you know, Indianapolis is practicing water restrictions as well, but then the city of Carmel 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they drilled 2 new wells, and so they don't have to do water restrictions until they start running out. You see, now that brings in controversy,
right?
Which in the West, they have water debates, consumers versus producers.
Sure.
And so we need to practice water.
It's just a good idea anyway, environmentally speaking. I would say.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, good to hear that it's not the end of it here, but at the same time, being responsible would be a good option. So we appreciate Cameron and Chris coming on Newswatch in Focus today.
Thank you. Thanks.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but we hope you'll stay tuned next for the Four Rivers Ag Report with Fred Peralta. He's got all the updates from the Coles County Fair, I do believe, so stay tuned for that. And we'll see you here next time on Newswatch in Focus. I'm your host, Kate Pleasant. Thanks for watching.